The Miami Dolphins play a football game this week. Let's go. Welcome into Miami Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. Very fun show planned for everyone at home today. We have to break down a joint practice between the Dolphins and the Falcons before the two teams match up on Friday to kick off the preseason for Miami. We also have to take a look at the first depth chart that the Dolphins released, answer some of your questions, and then also preview that first preseason game with the players that I have my eye on the most entering that preseason week 1 game. But before we do that, we have to welcome in Jack Latteray, producer extraordinaire, and also shout out your city for me down in the comment section.
We made it.
Back.
We made it. We did it.
Okay, so
it's here.
Full transparency. We had this debate in the office, and this is an evergreen discussion because it happens every single year. But everyone says, when is football back? You can argue football is back because we've had a football game. We had a football game last Thursday. We got practices. We got a game this upcoming Friday for the Miami Dolphins. Is football back? I'm kind of like lukewarm. Like, to me, is it awesome that we have football? Yes. But to me, football isn't back until it really matters. And these games don't matter.
My argument is the game of football being played on a field between NFL organizations. Doesn't matter what players are on the field. Are NFL organizations taking place in the game of football on a field in front of fans on TV?
I get it. I do get it. But I can't get too excited until we see all the real ones here. Well, I see some real ones in the chat. I see my guy Chef Jew. I see Kristen Reinhardt. I see LJC, Sherry May, Zoe Owens, Chad Jones. Not the first time we've seen Chad, but listen, we weren't live last week. I was at home enjoying a little bit of a vacation before we get the season fully underway. We got Julio Blanco in the building saying what's up. Jason Smith saying what's up. Jason's in Axtell, Kansas. I think I got that right. I think Orlando, Florida for LJC. Kristen's in the Bay Area. Let's go. Chad Jones, ho. Be honest for me, folks. We just talked about the preseason game. How excited are you for the game on Friday night? Scale 1 to 10. If I could, I'd put 1,000, but I would tell you that you could only go 1 through 10. I love the fact that we have Dolphins football almost every week for the next, 5 months?
Here's the thing.
Hopefully 6 months. That takes us into February.
This is the thing is the day after the Super Bowl, there's all of like those Instagram and Twitter posts, which are like, we've got 20 weeks, or that's probably not the right math, obviously, but like so many Sundays until we see football again. And it's like, I'm just so happy because we made it.
Yeah.
We made it.
There's football on every single week until the Super Bowl ends because we got preseason, and then the 1 week in between the preseason and the actual regular season is week 1 of the college football slate. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man. A lot of football ahead of us, and I could not be more excited. Now, if you want to go watch any of these football games in person, you best be doing it with the Game Time app because it is the only way that I get my tickets. It's the only way that producer Jack Latteray gets his tickets. And you should too because it gives you the best deals. Last-minute deals. It's the best place to get tickets if you're a little bit of a procrastinator like myself. You could save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sporting events, concerts, comedies. Does not matter. Game Time will have you covered. You could see exactly your vantage point when you're buying your tickets, whether it be in a baseball stadium, whether it be in a football stadium for one of these preseason Dolphins game or regular season games. You will see exactly what seat you are buying. And another reason why I love it is the all-in pricing. That's actually my favorite feature on the app because too many times on other apps I was scrolling, buying tickets, and I would think I'm paying one number, but then when I go to check out, it's way higher. No. With Game Time, you go to the all-in pricing and you know how much you'd actually be paying when you're looking at each individual seat. You're not getting blindsided at checkout. That is my personal favorite feature. I don't know about yours, Jack, but that's mine. But either way, we got a deal for you and all the Dolphins fans out there. When you download the Game Time app, make sure you create an account and use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off. Terms apply, but once again, download the app, use code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, to get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You can either click that link in the live chat, description, comments, or just go to your local app store and download that little box. You see that black box, white G. That's the best way to do it. All right, as we progress here through today's live show, this is our Super Chat menu for today. We're introducing a little new wrinkle here. I know my good old pal Will Scott did the waddle dance, and I want to bring it back. First time Super Chat, we're doing waddle dances. I think we might keep this for almost the entire season. I'm going to be honest. My favorite player on the team is Jalen Waddle. I think I've told most of you that before, but if you don't remember, he is my favorite player on the team. So anytime I get to do a little waddle dance, I'm all in it. I got to work on it. But I do want to do that. So first time Super Chats. That $5, we're bringing back 5 push-ups. $10 is beers cheers. $20 is a shot of tequila. And then $50 gets you into the Dolphins Hall of Fame. And I'll also do a beer bong as well to celebrate you getting into the Hall of Fame. But Jason Smith is getting the party started, baby. Die-hard fan from Kansas. What are your thoughts on Skylar Thompson making the team? Love your show. Well, first of all, Jason Smith, you were a real one. That is for sure. Skylar Thompson, I think that there's a legit chance that he beats out Mike White. Skylar Thompson and Mike White are the 2 QBs that are going to be battling for that backup quarterback spot. Now, it's not necessary anymore to carry a third quarterback on the 53-man roster because they changed the rules where you can have unlimited practice squad elevations for that to be your emergency third quarterback. So I only think Miami will carry 2 into the 53-man roster due to other positions needing more depth and injury insurance, but I do think Skylar Thompson can make this team. I predict that he will be the backup quarterback, and it's one of the most interesting things that we have to watch throughout the preseason is who wins that backup quarterback battle. Jason Smith, I owe you a shot. Do that in a second. But we're going to do it right after this because Chad Jones. Who? Chad Jones. Who? Shout out to Chad Jones. $20 Super Chat doing the waddle waddle. It's not a first-time Super Chat. We know that, but I'll do the waddle dance. A little waddle dance. It's first Super Chat of the preseason. We'll start the preseason week. So shout out to Chad. Shout out to Jason Smith. Jason Smith will also be featured on our mailbag that we'll be doing later today. Super Chat guarantees you a spot there, or hashtag Dolphins if you want to get started. But I do have a couple shots to take here in our build-up portion of today's live stream. And while I take these 2 shots, we get to ask a real football question. I know it's preseason. The games don't matter in terms of wins or losses. But who you got? Type MIA for the Dolphins, ATL for the Falcons this upcoming Friday. Let me know down in the comment section while I take a couple shots. Jack's making fun of me for saying we get to ask a real football question. I mean, sure, we asked questions pertaining to real football with training camp and stuff in the past couple weeks, but we're actually asking about who's going to win a dang football game, Jack.
You're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think it's funny because, we're finally here, so we get to ask, the hard-hitting question.
The ones that matter. Okay. Sherry Mays, type in those MIAs. Chad Jones, type in those MIAs. Johnny Lightning saying the Dolphins are going to the Super Bowl, baby. Boy, I hope so. LJC saying MIA. Chef Jew saying MIA. Shout out to all the real ones out in the comment section voting. Julio Blanco. I'm going to go Blanco. Definitely Blanco. Hopefully Blanco. MIA as well. Listen, I'll be honest. I think the Dolphins have a really good chance to win on Friday, but I will say this. I am very excited to watch, obviously, the Finns play. There's no doubt about that. But it's a little extra added incentive and excitement when we get to watch Michael Penix play. Like, that's just a fact.
If you have an intriguing quarterback that's not QB1, it's always better. Always. Like,
Well,
I'm excited to see the Vikings play. I'm excited to see the Broncos play because you get to see all of these young, exciting quarterbacks. I'm excited to see the Patriots play. Like, it's going to be great.
Well, I'll say this too, Jack, is that's not the only young rookie quarterback we get to see in the preseason. Now, he is expected to be QB1, but the Dolphins do play the Commanders this preseason. They play the Falcons, the Commanders, and the Buccaneers. So getting to play the Commanders, they get to play Jaden Daniels. So that will be fun to hopefully see him play some snaps. I actually can't remember if that's the second or third preseason game. It's escaping my mind right now. You can let me know in the comment section. But getting to see a couple young rookies play is going to be very fun. Hopefully the Dolphins are able to stalwart them now. All right, we got 60-plus people watching, but only 28 likes. Do you love the Miami Dolphins? I would assume you do if you're hanging out with us here on a Tuesday afternoon. So hit that thumbs up icon. Let's get to 40 likes. Let's get to 40 likes as a group. I think it's doable. I think we can get to 40 likes right now. As Julio saying, football's back, baby. Football's back. Let's get to 40 likes. Get the 40 likes. I saw that, Chad Jones. I don't even want to talk about it because it fired me up. I don't know if you saw this. There was a panel. Okay, you're reading it. There was a panel of CBS sports analysts that ranked how the AFC East was going to go, and there was 3 or 4. I don't know, but either way, there was 3 or 4 analysts that had the Dolphins finishing last in the AFC East. If the Dolphins finish last in the AFC East, yeah, you know what? I'm going to say something extremely stupid. I was going to say something stupid. I don't want to do it. Thank you, Jack, for slowing me down. But it's just not going to happen. It would take an absolute catastrophe for the Dolphins to finish last. It would require, 3 different season-ending injuries, and hopefully that does not happen. We got the 40-plus likes. Shout out to all the real Dolphins fans down below. And shout out to Ivan Mora sending a $2 super chat. Love the old Miami Dolphins logo. I wish it was their primary, if I'm going to be honest. I like it more than the current one. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe it's not. But he said it a first-time super chat. It means waddle, waddle. Waddle, waddle. Hopefully we see a lot of that this upcoming year in the end zone. I expect that we will. What is coming up on today's live show? It's a good one, folks. Dolphins-Falcons practice notes. The two teams, they're playing on Friday in the first preseason game of the year, but they're also practicing together today and tomorrow. We're going to recap the first practice, who stood out, what were the main takeaways. We also are going to talk about a surprising Dolphins depth chart because Miami released the first depth chart ahead of the first preseason game, and there were some interesting names kind of buried on the list, interesting names starting as well. We'll answer some of your questions down below, and then to wrap up today's show, that Falcons team that we are playing on Friday, yeah, we're going to preview that game with 10 players on the Dolphins roster that I am going to have my eye on for when they take the field in Miami Gardens on Friday night. With that being said, we got the likes, we got a couple super chats. It's time to get into some Dolphins-Falcons practice notes from earlier today. Welcome to the Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff, and real football is here. We saw the Dolphins take on another team. Not an actual game, but practice. And on today's show, the Falcons came to town, and we're breaking down all the news, notes, and takeaways from the first Dolphins-Falcons joint practice. They will be doing another one on Wednesday morning before they play their real game in the first week of the preseason on Friday night. And before we get into the news and notes, if you want to see more on the Dolphins practices with the Atlanta Falcons and more on training camp just in general, make sure you follow me on Twitter/X at Nic_Rohloff is my handle. I'm tweeting about news, notes, highlights. I'll have it all for you over there just to give you extra coverage on the Dolphins outside of YouTube, so go give me a follow right now. I think the first thing that is important to talk about is who wasn't at practice for the Dolphins today. These 8 names did not participate for the Finns. Jordan Poyer, who has missed the last 4 practices now. Jalen Waddle didn't participate. Braxton Berrios was out. Mohamed Kamara, the rookie from Colorado State, was out. The 2 linebackers who have now missed 3 straight practices, and Anthony Walker Jr. and Jordan Brooks both missed it. Eric Ezukama, and then Selvin Ahmed, the running back, who actually was in a walking boot in that same foot that ended his season last year, so hopefully isn't really that big of an injury for Selvin Ahmed. But the biggest name on this list is clearly wide receiver Jalen Waddle. To me, I think this was just a rest day, if you will. No really crazy reports out there from beat reporters talking about Waddle's injury or any concern from the Dolphins organization. So to me, I'm not getting concerned about Waddle. I think it was more or less just a day off to make sure he's not overworking himself right now. Veterans are going to get those days off. I know Waddle's only entering year 5, but it's still good to get him some rest. Year 4, excuse me. But Waddle, nothing serious for Jalen. All right, let's now get into the practice takeaways for the Dolphins. The first one that I had, Dolphins defense is absolutely legit. This team, I think, is going to have a top 5 defensive football. I've been saying that all offseason long because I'm bullish on Anthony Weaver, who came over from Baltimore to replace Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. And some of the news and takeaways that we saw from beat reporters were just praising the secondary for the Dolphins. Jalen Ramsey and Kendall Fuller are going to be maybe the best defensive duo in the cornerback department this entire NFL season. I know a lot of people are going to go out there and say the New York Jets duo of Reed and Sauce Gardner, but I think Fuller and Ramsey are going to have a better season as a duo, and I am just hoping they're able to stay healthy. There was tons of reports about them locking up Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, Drake London, having really good plays on the balls. I also saw some reports that a lot of corner blitzes were in play here, with Fuller coming off the edge, Jalen Ramsey coming off the edge, getting their hands on footballs as Kirk Cousins or Penix tried to throw the hot over their head. To me, I think both of them provide you the ability to play zone, play man-to-man, blitz them off the end. I think Anthony Weaver is going to utilize them in very different ways. That duo is going to be extremely fun to watch, and they're going to need to be good considering the quarterbacks and wide receivers the Dolphins will have to face this upcoming year. I challenged the Dolphins defense, and the number one thing that I was intrigued to watch in the next 2 days with practice is to see how the Dolphins front 7 fared against the Falcons running attack, because we know that they like to run the football quite a bit. They have a really good offensive line with Caleb McGarry, Chris Lindstrom, Jake Matthews, Drew Dahlman, with Bijan running back and Tyler Algier as your 2 backs. They have an elite rushing attack, and with the loss of Christian Wilkins and some injuries, I was intrigued to see how this Dolphins front 7 was going to fare. And they answered the call. Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald reported today in his news and notes that the Dolphins defense was fantastic early on, limiting the Falcons to fewer than 10 yards on the first 8 carries. That could not be more music to my ears. Think about this, folks. We mentioned the players that did not participate in practice. 2 linebackers that are going to see a large role on this defense, Anthony Walker Jr. and Jordan Brooks. Obviously, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are more well known for getting after the pass or the quarterback, but those 2 guys not being there also impacts the Dolphins' defensive line. But seeing Zach Sealer, Tier Tart, Chop Robinson, Quinton Bell, Calais Campbell, the David Long Jr., answer the call with some of the key players in the front 7 not there, and still kind of stalwart this Falcons rushing attack just makes me very bullish on this team. And that was the biggest concern in this Dolphins defense. How are they going to stop the run? Well, at least in the first joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons, they did an extremely good job. Which also takes me to the last point we'll talk about with this defense, and it's the reserve edges. Chop Robinson, the rookie from Penn State, and then the longtime journeyman veteran who has not found a home in the NFL quite yet, and Quinton Bell are just absolutely making plays for this Dolphins defense. Chop is going to be better than what people thought. Hand up, I already know. I misjudged that draft pick. Chop Robinson is going to be an absolute stud for this Dolphins team in the foreseeable future. This edge group is extremely deep, man. We're seeing Emmanuel Ogbah and those 2 names we just talked about make plays. And that doesn't even include Mo Kamara, who's going to continue to get better. Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb returning. I am going to pound my fist on the table here and tell you that this Dolphins pass rush will be a top 5 group in the NFL. And if this secondary can stay healthy as well, there's no reason why this Dolphins defense can't be a top 3, top 5 group in the entire league. We are facing the Falcons on the field this week, but we're also facing them on the YouTube streets. We have a Falcons channel here at Chat Sports, and we're competing with them all week long in subscribers. We're starting here on Tuesday when the two teams matched up on the field. Who is going to get more subs throughout this week? We'll conclude with our final battle, if you will, on our Friday watch party, so make sure you subscribe and join us for that. But let's take down the Falcons channel here at Chat Sports. Takeaway number 2, River Craycraft is on this team. And I know that just a couple days ago, I predicted Eric Ezukama to be the final wide receiver on this roster. I just don't see that being the case anymore. Craycraft has had an excellent camp so far, but he really balled out in the first joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons. And with Ezukama out, Odell Beckham Jr. out, Braxton Berrios missing practice today as well, Craycraft was asked to be a much larger piece in this Dolphins offense during one-on-ones, 11-on-11s, and he answered the call, making a handful of catches in the early portions, helping the Dolphins get a field goal in the final 2-minute drill that the two teams had. Like, River Craycraft is doing everything that he needed to do to ensure himself a roster spot when they cut it down from 90 to 53, and I expect him to continue to make plays during these preseason games over the next 3 weeks. Craycraft also caught a 50-yard touchdown that probably wouldn't have counted if they let the quarterbacks get hit. Some reports that the Falcons would have had a sack on the play. But nonetheless, River Craycraft beat his guy deep to score a touchdown. Craycraft is playing excellent football right now, and I think he is going to make the 53-man roster. But what say you? Predict it for me down in the comment section. Will River Craycraft be on this Dolphins 53-man roster on cutdown day in late August? Type Y for yes or type N for no. If you want to go see the Dolphins play the Falcons at home in their first preseason game, use Game Time, and that is in the Miami area. But hey, if you're not in the Miami area, you can still use Game Time to get tickets to any event you want wherever you are. Last-minute deals, save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows. It does not matter. It's not just a sports app. Yeah, we talk football here, but they also get you tickets to any type of event you want. Flash deals come up on the app to give you the best price guaranteed. In-app deals, select seats, does not matter. They will have you covered. Lowest price guaranteed as well. If you find the same seat in the same section on a different app with a cheaper price, Game Time will actually credit you 110% of the difference. Yeah, that's right. Game Time really does that. They are the best. It's the best way to get tickets. It's the only one I use when I go watch games in the Dallas area because that's where we're located. So I implore you guys to do the same, and you will have an excellent deal because you can get $20 off your first purchase when you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. Terms do apply, but make sure you create an account after downloading the app. Redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, to get $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Appreciate Game Time for sponsoring today's show. All right, the third takeaway from this joint practice. The offensive line was very up and down, and this is going to get sketchy, I'm not going to lie, but it is good to see at least the offensive linemen take on different bodies that aren't our own defensive linemen. We will start with the positives, and that's rookie second-round pick Patrick Paul out of Houston. He won all but one of his 1v1 reps, and that included going against some good defensive linemen. Paul not going to see a role this year unless Teron Armstead or Austin Jackson gets hurt, so it is possible he will get a couple spot starts this year, but he's not going into the year as a starter, likely going to replace Teron Armstead in the future. But Paul performed pretty well in one-on-one drills. So did Robert Jones, who is the leader in the clubhouse to probably be the starting right guard for this team as he's looking to replace Robert Hunt. He is actually listed on the first depth chart, by the way, spoiler for the video going out tomorrow morning, as the starting left guard with Isaiah Wynn still on the PUP list. But Robert Jones played really well in the 1v1 period, won a lot of his reps. That included going up against Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, two of the better interior defensive linemen the NFL has that both are on the Atlanta Falcons. But there is a little bit of an issue here. We talked about the two positives. It wasn't all sunshines and rainbows in Miami today with the offensive line. The O-line struggled during 11-on-11 drills, specifically Jack Driscoll. He had a really bad day, which is disappointing to me because I thought Driscoll could have really competed for this right guard spot, and I ultimately ended up going with the prediction that he would replace and overtake Robert Jones to be the starting right guard because of how well he did at that right guard spot for the Eagles back in 2021. He's getting snaps at center, not snapping the ball well, not blocking well. All reports out of camp is that Driscoll has really underperformed in the first 2 weeks here in South Florida, which is extremely disappointing because I would have liked to see Driscoll really threaten for that starting role. And I tell you what, after hearing that the offensive line has been up and down, not consistent, struggling with snaps, Aaron Brewer at center, not participating well and playing well in 11-on-11 drills against the Falcons on day one, I'm just starting to really try to hope that this O-line doesn't hold back this team when it matters the most, man. It's really a concern for me because this team is so good on offense when it comes to the running back depth, the wide receivers, the quarterback, the tight ends. Like, everything you can ask for in terms of weapons and position players is terrific. But if the offensive line can't block and when it matters the most, we're going to be in some trouble. So I really hope this group does not hold back the entire offense. Final takeaway today. I think Tua is in for a big year. It kind of goes hand in hand with the offensive line. Like, sure, he needs to be protected, but Tua Tagovailoa has been extremely good in training camp ever since getting that contract extension. He has absolute command of this offense, and you might have seen the viral clip. If not, you should have followed me on Twitter to make sure you do see it. But Tua dropping dimes 50 yards down the field to Tyreek Hill. Those two have such a special connection, a great rapport. Same thing with Jalen Waddle. All reports are that Tua was cooking, and he's one of the better throwers over the middle of the football field as they use that speed, play action, motion to get the wide receivers behind the linebackers. Tua fires the darts right in the middle of the safeties and linebackers. This offense is in for another really good year, and as long as the offensive line doesn't absolutely go to shit, I think we're going to be in for another good offensive season for the Miami Dolphins. We still have another joint practice on Wednesday, but we will have a game on Friday against the Atlanta Falcons. How excited are you for the Dolphins' first preseason game against Atlanta on Friday? Scale it for me 1 to 10 down in the comment section. Make sure you are subscribed, but I did want to make this last note here. Ethan Bonner, who has had a really good camp for the Dolphins, and Drake London got in a little bit of a scrap. London caught a ball over Ethan Bonner. London gave him a little shove, but Bonner didn't back down, and they got to a little scuffle. Didn't last too long, only about 15, 20 seconds, but I do love to see the competitive juices come out and a little brawl ensue. It wasn't crazy, just not like the Malik Neighbors and the Giants-Lions fight the other day, but they are getting a little scrappy out there in Miami. Make sure you are subscribed because we are going to be live for that game between the Dolphins and Falcons this upcoming Friday night. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you join us because we're going to be live providing fun play-by-play, commentary, analysis, and everything you need surrounding the Fins. As always, folks, we'll see you tomorrow with another video. Go Fins. Oh! A $50 super chat from my guy, Jason Smith, saying, love my oceanic mammals. Also excited about my K-State Wildcats. Love me some football. Jason Smith, we are back. Listen, K-State's I actually think supposed to be pretty good in the Big 12 this year. They're, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're the second favorites to win the Big 12 this year. Obviously, the Big 12 getting crazy, shaken up because of the spacing. Oklahoma and Texas leaving the conference, but K-State, when I was looking at the odds the other day, was definitely in the top portion. Jack, I just realized I didn't bring a beer ball. I thought I did. Jack is going to go grab me a Merbanga to chug a beer, but in the meantime, we'll get Jason Smith into the Dolphins Aqua Club / Hall of Fame. Ooh, look at this puppy, man. This thing's sick. I think it's sick. We'll get you in here, Jason Smith. I appreciate the donation. I appreciate you coming around and hanging out with us here on a Tuesday afternoon. Hope everyone got informed there with everything that was happening with Dolphins-Falcons training camp. We had Frank O'Connor join. We have Tim B, Christian Reinhardt. I'm forgetting who this is. SM. Oh, Sherry May. How could I forget that? Chad Jones is on here. Sherry May says, "Be gentle with my helmet." It's a helmet, baby. It's built to last. It's built to last. But shout out to Jason Smith. See a name on here? I think I'm gonna be able to fit it all. Shout out to Lotta Ray coming in. Jason Smith. I think the orange sticker just goes really well with the white helmet. Shout out to Jason Smith getting on there right there, baby. And then on cue, we have to take a little bit of a beer bong to celebrate as well. $10 for a beer's cheers if we want to get a little rowdy on a Tuesday afternoon. Fine with me. It's cold. I forgot how cold these can get, and it's dicey. It's dicey. All right, let me move the helmet away. All right. Shout out to Jason Smith for the $50 super chat. You're a real one, my friend. I can't wait to party with all the Dolphins fans this upcoming year, man. Let's go, baby. Oh. Excuse me. Shout out to you, Jason Smith. Appreciate the donation, my friend. Sherry May with a $5 super chat. I'm expecting the pregame discounts for super chat. Sherry May, she knows what to go. She knows what to do around here. She knows the tailgate specials. We will be live an hour before the game. So the game is at 7 p.m. Central, or Eastern time, 6 p.m. Central time. So we will be live on Friday night at 5 p.m. Central time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. 1 hour before the game, we'll have a bunch of tailgate specials. We'll hang out, party, talk about ball, and get ready for the first Dolphins preseason game. Sherry May, you know what we do around here, so I expect to see you on Friday night. Jack, we also owe 5 push-ups. $5 equals 5 push-ups. It's all right, Jack. It's all right. Take your time. We're good. No rush, Jack. I'm going to get a little wash down there. I will say this is a better angle. It's much easier for you. 5 push-ups coming in for Sherry May. Let's go. Thank you, Sherry May. 1. Oh, my God, I'm sore so much from yesterday. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yeah. So there's nothing quite like, in my opinion, than – oh, look at that beautiful Jack ladder, right? I love when it turns around and you're just sitting there, Jack. No, I'm being serious. I love it. You want me to clap on the push-ups? Maybe next time. Well, I wasn't prepared for clap push-ups. But either way, there's nothing like taking a week off of working out because I was back home and I didn't really get to go to the gym too often. And then your first workout back and you're just crazy sore. Oh, well, maybe next time, Sherry May. I actually don't also know if I'd be able to do that, but we will see. See, I don't know if I got clap push-ups in me, to be honest. All right. All right, we are going to do a mailbag, not this segment, but the one after. But we want to start getting some questions loaded in there. So use hashtag Dolphins or Super Chat to get in. We know our guy Jason Smith is going to be in due to his first Super Chat of $20, which was a great question about Skylar Thompson. If you want to be like Jason Smith, you can Super Chat to guarantee you're a spot into the mailbag. If not, hashtag Dolphins. Want to ask a question about training camp, about expectations for the year, a move the Dolphins can make. Anything you want to ask about Miami, we will answer it. Hashtag Dolphins is the best way to do it, or Super Chat to guarantee your question. So hopefully you guys pile in some questions here while we are about to talk about the surprise depth chart that the Miami Dolphins released, which will be a fun little segment here. Let me get set up. Let me take a sip of my coffee. Nothing like mixing beer, tequila, and coffee. Stomach is absolutely in peril. It doesn't matter. It is what we do. We do put our bodies on the line. Good question, LJC. Everyone be like LJC down in the comments section. All right. Let's do this, Jack. We had a surprise depth chart. The Falcons and Dolphins will play in NFL Preseason Week 1 this Friday. And as always, teams drop a depth chart prior to each game. And I kind of wanted to talk about the first one for the Dolphins because it was a little surprising. And anytime we get to see a depth chart from the Fins, it at least piques my interest, and it should as well for you. But before we get into that depth chart and my biggest takeaways from it, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are going to be live for every game that the Miami Dolphins play this season, but we will specifically be live for this one on Friday. Make sure you subscribe and join us. We're going to be live an hour before the game. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern time game, so 6 p.m. Eastern time is when we'll be live. Make sure you subscribe and join us because we have daily coverage of the Dolphins, and we'll be live for every single game. All right, the first takeaway from the initial depth chart from the Miami Dolphins is the offensive line shuffle. We know there's been some injuries and some question marks on who's going to start with this group, but the first Dolphins depth chart kind of gave us a little bit of a clue. No surprise at left tackle, center, or right tackle. Austin Jackson is always going to be the starting right tackle. Aaron Brewer was always going to be the starting center, and Teron Armstead's always going to be the left tackle. But with no Isaiah Wynn, as he is still on the PUP list, Robert Jones, who we thought is going to be the starting right guard, actually is listed as the starting left guard, which means backup center, Liam Eichenberg, is actually listed as the starting right guard. And this is a little bit intriguing to me because we've often talked about the battle for the starting right guard spot when Isaiah Wynn's healthy. It was going to be between Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg, Jack Driscoll, and Robert Jones. But to see Liam Eichenberg technically get that nod at right guard when Robert Jones is over at left guard kind of showcases to me that he might be in the driver's seat to be that second guy. And maybe he's not the driver's seat to be the starting right guard. I would still probably lean Robert Jones since we've seen him get left guard reps and be the Isaiah Wynn replacement for now, if you will. But with Jack Driscoll, that's the crazy thing to me. I've thought that he could be the person who comes out and emerges from the pack to be your starting right guard. But the fact that he is behind Liam Eichenberg as the starting right guard right now at this portion in camp tells me a lot. And we know that he has struggled a little bit. He's gotten reps at center. He's gotten reps at right guard. He just has not performed to what I expected him to do in the first 2 weeks of camp, which has kind of put him a little bit behind here on the depth chart. But outside of the interior, there was no crazy thing that I wanted to talk about, but I did want to address the interior offensive line because Robert Jones is at left guard, Liam Eichenberg's at right guard, Jack Driscoll there, but then Lester Cotton, who's probably going to be the person who is the odd man out on the roster bubble, was listed as the third right guard. Let's talk about the edge lineup now because it's interesting. Obviously, the depth chart's not include anybody on the PUP list or on the IR because they technically aren't able to, but it was intriguing to see how they fared. No surprise, Emmanuel Ogbah is your number one edge who was signed right after the Shaq Barrett retirement that came out a couple weeks ago. Quinton Bell, though, has been an absolute revelation for the Miami Dolphins, as listed as that opposite starting edge to Emmanuel Ogbah. Chop Robinson, Mo Kamara, the two rookies, are listed right behind Ogbah in that edge one department. And then you see Brown and Grayson Murphy, the UDFA, listed behind Quinton Bell. But the part that we do need to talk about is the fact that Bell is listed as the starting edge and outside linebacker opposite to Emmanuel Ogbah over Chop Robinson. And maybe it's a rookie thing, maybe it's not, but Bell has been absolutely spectacular through this point at camp. No one thought he even was going to have a shot to make this roster. He's been the second or third best edge with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb out, probably slightly ahead of Chop Robinson, if we're going to be honest, in terms of production and his ability to flash against the Falcons, flash against his own teammates. Like, Quinton Bell has been really, really good, and I've honestly just been overall very impressed with the Dolphins edge group to this point. Whenever you lose guys like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, who are probably both top 15 at the position, or at least top 20, like, you expect your pass rush to be lacking in training camp against your own guys and against the other team. But that's not been the case. They've been able to get after the quarterback between Ogbah, Chop, and Quinton Bell, completely spaced there for some reason. They have been able to get pressure at the quarterback, and when you start to integrate Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb back into this rotation, this is going to be an extremely deep group, and I expect it to be one of the best pass rushes in all of football. I think it's kind of a lock almost at this point. It would take Quinton Bell really, really to drop off in his production in the rest of camp to not make the team. That's just how good he has been. But let me know. Predict it for me. Will Quinton Bell end up being on the final 53-man roster? I don't see a way he's not, so I'm typing my Ys, but type your Ys or Ns down below. Let's talk about running back Jalen right now, because he's kind of buried on this depth chart, and it's a little bit of a shock to me. I don't know if it's because he's a rookie. I don't know the exact reason, but when you look at how the Dolphins listed things early on, no surprise that you have Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane as your top two backs, but then Jeff Wilson was listed as RB3, Chris Brooks as RB4, with Selvin Ahmed listed as RB5, and Jalen Wright as RB6. Like, I am very, very surprised that the fourth-round pick, the rookie out of Tennessee, is listed as the last running back on this depth chart. And no, this is not me saying that Jalen Wright is not going to make this team because he's the last listed running back on the depth chart. It's not what I'm saying whatsoever. But it is intriguing to me that maybe the Dolphins don't feel as he is ready quite yet to have the role that many of us expected he would have. Does that open the door for Jeff Wilson to make this team that we didn't expect that to be the case? I'm not so sure. It's very early. There's still 2 preseason games, still a damn near month to go until September 8th when this season gets underway against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm not going to try to overreact just yet, but it is something that I am definitely taking away from the first depth chart that the Dolphins released. I mentioned that the Dolphins are about a month away from the season getting underway. Well, if you want to catch the Fins in person this year, there's no other way to do it than using Game Time, the best ticking app on the market. It's the one that I use. It's the one that producer Jack Ladere uses. The entire Chat Sports office uses Game Time because it's simply the best. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you are sitting in your venue, whether it be a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, theater. It does not matter. You can get last-minute deals and the best ticket prices at Game Time, and use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off when you download the app and create an account for your first purchase. Yes, it is just first purchase, but there are so many better advantages to using Game Time than there is other ticketing apps, and it's the reason why I love using GT. So like I said, you can get $20 off your first purchase when you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. Terms do apply, but make sure you create that account and redeem code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Appreciate Game Time for sponsoring today's show. All right, let's go to the tight end department. Durham Smythe, tight end 1? Kind of a shock to me, but that's how it was listed in the first depth chart by the Miami Dolphins. Smythe was listed as the number 1 guy, and kind of in a stunning move if you're asking me. Jonnu Smith is your tight end 2, which I did not see coming because I think he's clearly been the best tight end for this Dolphins team so far in camp. Julian Hill listed as tight end 3. My sweet prince, Jody Fortson Jr. at tight end 4. The standout Tanner Connor, who has had a really good camp thus far, at tight end 5. And then Hayden Rucci, the UDFA out of Wisconsin, that last guy in this group. But the main takeaway that I have to discuss here is the fact that Jonnu Smith isn't tight end 1. And I know Durham Smythe has been the tight end 1 last season. He was the tight end 2 years ago with Mike Gesicki, and he's the more experienced tight end on this group. But I just don't see a way that Jonnu Smith isn't tight end 1 on this team. He has the most experience, the most production in his career. He's one of the best yards after the catch tight end in the NFL. I think he actually is the best one. That's my personal opinion. There are some stats that back that up as well. And I know there's going to be a lot made out of Jody Fortson being the 4th guy, Julian Hill being the 3rd guy, but I'm really just focused on Smythe being ahead of Jonnu Smith. But like I have mentioned a couple times, we are very early in the training camp process. Things will absolutely change, but Smythe being listed at tight end 1 might make you think there's going to be a good chance that he is on this roster when we get to cutdown day in late August. Last takeaway we got to mention, the wide receiver battle here, and there's been so many injuries to this position group already. Odell Beckham Jr. is on the PUP list. Taj Washington placed on IR. Eric Ezukama banged up as well. But when you looked at the first release of the depth chart, there's some intriguing things we have to talk about. No surprise at the top with Hill and Waddle. Barrios at number 3 due to the fact, well, OBJ isn't there. River Craycraft listed as wide receiver 4, which makes a lot of sense due to the fact that he's been an extremely good, productive player in the first 2 weeks of camp. Newly signed Willie Snead, wide receiver 5. How about that? Schwartz 6, Braylon Sanders 7, Ezukama 8, puts him really behind the 8 ball. But then this is the player we got to talk about. My guy, Malik Washington, 6th round pick out of Virginia, who I have been very bullish on, saying that he's going to have a role for the Dolphins this year in the slot with his shiftiness and his ability to just catch everything over the middle of the field. Like I said, with another player in Jalen Ramsey. I don't know if it's the rookie thing. I don't know what it is, if they put rookies a little bit lower than they do usually. But either way, Malik Washington being the 8th wide receiver mentioned, like, what are we doing here? He is going to be good. I hope a lot of things here, but I think that he is a lot higher on the depth chart than they're actually letting on, and I expect to see him ball out over the next couple weeks in these preseason games, but that's a little bit of a shock to me. Last name I did want to mention, we talked about it a little bit, but River Craycraft has had such an excellent camp over the first 2 weeks that having him as wide receiver 4 with injuries to OBJ makes a ton of sense, right? So normally OBJ would be 3, Craycraft would be 5, Barrios 4, which is fine by me if Malik Washington is wide receiver 6, because I don't think there's any way in hell that it would be a smart move to cut Malik Washington because another team would scoop him up. That's definitely my thoughts there. But Craycraft has had a really good camp, so it doesn't shock me to see him in the top 4 with OBJ currently on the PUP list. I know we didn't show every single position group, but we only showed the top 5 in terms of shocking to me. Like, there's not that big of a surprise at inside linebacker, cornerback, safety, quarterback. So to me, I only want to talk about the 5 groups that really stood out to me. So what was your one-word reaction to the Dolphins depth chart, or at least the pieces that we showed you on today's video? My one word, early. I've kind of said that a couple times throughout this video, but that's kind of how I'm viewing this, right? There's just so much time until now and the final cutdown day. There's going to be 3 preseason games, more training camp practices, where there's going to be a lot of time for players to either climb up the depth chart or fall down the depth chart. So I would expect Malik Washington and Jalen Wright, who we talked about being a little too low, as 2 rookies that I thought could really have an impact on this team. Well, there's a lot of time for them to make up on that ground. And it wouldn't shock me in a week when we're maybe doing another Dolphins depth chart video that Malik Washington and Jalen Wright are much higher on this list. So that's my one word, a little early. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are going to have the best coverage here on YouTube, in my opinion, when it comes to the Dolphins. Multiple videos a day at points. Videos every single day, that's for sure, but sometimes 2. Also live for every single game, including this one on Friday night against the Atlanta Falcons. So hit that sub button and join us here because we're going to have the best coverage over the next year. Oh, Chad Jones with another $20 super chat. The legend just continues to show why he's the GOAT here at Dolphins Today. Shout out to Chad Jones. Who? Chad Jones. Another shot coming up here. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Appreciate you, Chad. Hopefully you're with us here on Friday night. I mean, how could you not? It's Dolphins football at its finest, baby. If you're not subscribed, then are you really alive? What's the term? You're not subscribed, you're not alive. If you're not with us on Friday night, you're not alive because we're going to have a lot of fun. It's also my birthday on Friday, Jack. I know we've said that a couple times. First ever watch party on the channel as Nic Rohloff being the host. I mean, we've had a lot in the past, obviously, but for me to host the first ever watch party on my birthday, I feel like that's just a really good omen on how things are going to go between the Dolphins this season, but also like this channel here coming up. Like, I feel like that's a good sign, right? No? Chad says, I hope you aren't drinking Sprite. Hell no, brother. You know that. Come on now. You know that. Chad Jones says I'll be here because you're being a legend. Chef's Juice says I'll be here while at the game. Let's go. Jeremy says I wanted to drink bourbon. Well, all we have here is we have tequila, we have vodka, Fireball. What else do we have, Jack? I think that's it. I think that's what we have. Different types of tequila, that's for sure. I definitely did Jack. Did Jack. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just reading that what's it called? Yeah, I was just reading those productions. I thought there was something important. Yeah. I just saw like a flurry of messages come in, so I was just curious if I missed anything. Looks like we're all good though. Sherman says no wild turkey 101. Can't say we have that. Can't say we do. Bill Lyon says happy early birthday. I want one of those Dolphins Today by Chat Sports polos. Bill, this is actually the first time I'm ever wearing it. Obviously, we've talked about how difficult it is to wear Dolphins gear, unfortunately, because of our green screen. Because this is obviously not a normal background. We work in a studio with a green screen, and for some reason, you would think that the Dolphins aqua color is different enough from normal green to not be green screened. Well, you would think wrong. So when I wear some of the Dolphins aqua color, like you can even see it here, for example, with the helmet. Like, look, you could see a little bit here. Did it put it? I think I'm going to show. No? It's not going to work now, of course not. That's unbelievable because it usually does. But usually this, like, the Dolphin does. Yeah, you can see. Yeah, you could see me behind a little bit. But the aqua sometimes blends in with the green screen, so it looks funny when I wear any of that color. So when we were making these, and shout out to Danny, who is Jeremy Chuggs' wife, said, let's make some polos for the crew. I said, is it possible to make a Dolphins Today polo with absolutely no aqua in it so I can wear it on our live shows? Yes, so we got white and orange. I wanted it to be a white polo with aqua and orange color logo, but I was like, I just think, I think it looks cool too. I just think the first version of like white with aqua would have been dope, but I didn't want to run the risk of not being able to wear it. So I didn't want to run the risk. Appreciate the happy early birthday for Bill, though. Appreciate that. Chris says go to beer. I'm a Miller Lite guy. If I'm gonna have a beer, it's gonna be a Miller Lite. That's just me though. That's just me. All right, we are not sure how many questions we have. Let's find out by Mr. Lotteray. We have 6 questions, which we could do, but I'd like to get up to 10 or 12. I'd like to get up to 10 or 12. So, use hashtag Dolphins or super chat. Ask good questions, too. Jack says ask good questions. Yeah, no bullshit questions, says Jack Lotteray. So, make sure you get those questions in. Hashtag Dolphins or super chat. Bill says change the green screen colors. So I know you're talking about the background here. Can we do that? Be cool. Why not? Take off the background here? Well, you'd have to do, right? Am I tripping? Hold on. Jack's doing some producer stuff. I actually don't. There we go. So in our studio, this is what it looks like normally, right? Like you see the Dolphins today, blah, blah, blah. Like very cool, very cool. But this is where, if you were in the studio with Jack and I, this is what's behind me. See? It's this green. Like, that's what's behind me, this wall right here. And a little peek behind the curtain here. I think it's cool. But, like, and then look, there, it's back to that. Very cool stuff that we do here at Chat Sports. But that's the issue, is, like, sometimes that aqua color blends in with that. Why? I don't know how. It feels like it's different enough, but it does have that issue.
So basically, the background that you see now, those colors don't matter. What matters is the color green. The color green, if you're using a green screen and you're chroma keying, which is what we're doing, it will chroma key out any green that you have on, basically. So that's why when Nick wears aqua, it doesn't completely chroma key out, but it kind of does. So it's kind of transparent and you can kind of see through it. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, no. Appreciate that. I feel like we've got some good questions in there. Yeah, I'm seeing. Yeah, I was going to say, keep on sending your questions, but I think we have some good questions coming in here, Jack. Thought we do. I think we have good enough here. I don't think I saw any, like, Brandon Ayuk questions, but, like, if there is, stay away from those. Just because. No, it's going Thursday. This is going Thursday, so I don't want this to be, Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. All right. Let's do it, baby. Let's get into this Dolphins Q&A. That's what I thought. All right. If you want more content from here, or what? Let's start over. That was horrible. Sometimes it does not go as planned, folks. Sometimes, like, words don't come out of your mouth the way that they're supposed to. And that was one of them. Just terrible. Usually it doesn't happen, but that was a bad look. That was a bad look. First of all, I'll say this real quick. Bill says, are we able to buy these polo shirts? I can ask. Right now, no. Yeah, these were made special for us, but we will see. I think it would be cool. I know Sherry May said that we should get a Dolphins logo on here, but that actually believed to be illegal. That would be illegal because we do not have their permission to use their logo on merch. So I know people do it all the time, but they could get in trouble, and we don't want to take that risk. So that's why maybe that's not the possible. All right. We're going to do this again here, and hopefully we're able to get this puppy off the ground much better. All right. By the way, I have a fun story time at the end of today's show that I want to talk about. Crazy thing that happened to me yesterday. Just came to mind. I want to talk about it. But let's get into it here. You want more coverage around the Miami Dolphins? Well, our Instagram's the best place to do it. Yeah, we provide daily content here at Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, but you get extra content when you are following us over on Instagram. Our handle is at the bottom of your screen, Dolphins Today IG, and the goal is to get 30 followers on today's show. We want to get 500 followers before the season begins, and if we do that, we'll actually do a Q&A like we're going to have on today's show just from our Instagram DMs. So make sure you follow us over there, and you're only going to get more content, so what are you waiting for? All right, welcome into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. Like I said, this is a mailbag on today's show, as we do want to answer some questions before the Dolphins' first preseason game on Friday night against the Atlanta Falcons. The first question coming in from a real one, Jason Smith. $20 super chat. Shout out to Jason. Saying, diehard fan from Kansas, what are your thoughts on Skylar Thompson making the team? Love your show. Well, Jason Smith, you're a Kansas State fan as well, and Skylar Thompson is one of the better quarterbacks from Kansas State. But either way, Skylar's been on this team for a couple of years now, right? Remember in 2022, he got a lot of playing time due to Tua being hurt down the stretch. Actually started a playoff game and almost won it against the Buffalo Bills. Mike White came onto the scene last year to be the main backup to Tua Tagovailoa, and Skylar Thompson was a little bit demoted, and now those two guys are going back and forth to have the rights to be the backup QB for Tua this year. I think it's going to be very important, and one of the most fun things to watch in these three preseason games is who performs better from the quarterback perspective of Skylar Thompson and Mike White. I do think Skylar Thompson can make this team. I predicted him to make this team, because Mike White carries a larger cap hit, and maybe Chris Grier wants to save a little bit of money and view Skylar Thompson as an equal backup or maybe even slightly better, and it would just make sense to keep Skylar. Now, the cap space might not matter as much because the Dolphins actually have quite a lot of cap space, at least at this moment, after the Tyreek Hill contract restructure. But I do think Skylar Thompson can make this team. I'm still going to predict him to make this team. He just has to outperform Mike White in the first three preseason games. Chad Jones with a super chat. Shout out to the legend himself. With our lack of depth on the O-line, how do you think our line will hold up over the long haul? Well, that is the largest concern with this Dolphins football team. There's no doubt about it. We've often talked about signing a right guard. Greg Van Roten was the top name, but he signed with the New York Giants, unfortunately, and now the Dolphins are stuck with what they have in-house. This was the first Dolphins offensive line depth chart that was released before the preseason game. Isaiah Wynn is not on here because he is on the PUP list right now. So Robert Jones is your starting left guard, and Liam Eichenberg is your right guard. I like your two tackles. I'm a fan of Austin Jackson and Teron Armstead, but the interior offensive line is really where it's going to get a little bit sketchy, and quarterbacks will always tell you the worst type of pressure to face is from the interior because you're not able to step up into your throws and you're constantly backpedaling or scrambling to your left and right. So to me, I am a little bit concerned with our offensive line depth. And if there is an injury to a couple players, then they could be in a really bad spot. I like your swing tackles, if I'm going to be honest. Patrick Ball, second-round pick out of Houston, and Kendall Lamb. So if you get injuries to Austin Jackson or Teron Armstead, you were able to survive them, in my opinion. But if you get banged up on the interior, I don't love what you have there. It's the number one thing that I believe Chris Grier failed to address this offseason. I get it. You're not going to have a perfect roster, but the interior offensive line is kind of left in a tough spot. So it could be a point where they are holding this offense back as a whole. And if there's a couple injuries to that interior, it could get really, really ugly for the Fins. But I'm going to cross my fingers that that is not going to be the case. I mentioned that the Dolphins are playing a preseason game this upcoming Friday against the Atlanta Falcons. How excited are you for Dolphins football to be back on your television where we get to watch those beautiful unis take the field in Miami? Scale 1 to 10 on how excited you are. My guy LJC with a question here. Do you think the Dolphins will trade for anyone? If so, who? Yeah. Do I think they will trade for someone? Maybe. They do have cap space available right now. I will be honest. They have about $36 million in cap space for this upcoming season after the Tyreek Hill contract restructure. They already had $20 million. They got a little bit more by pushing some guaranteed money down the line. And that's going to help this year, sure. But will they end up using that cap space to help the roster now or try to carry over some of that cap space until later in the season for a trade at the trade deadline, or just help them save money because they're so over the cap next year where they're got one of the least amount of cap space available. They're actually $44 million over the cap in 2025, which is going to be a disaster after the season, but that's a future Dolphins problem that we don't have to talk about right now. But if they had to trade for anyone, I would try to find someone to play that interior offensive line position. I'd have to look up and kind of become more informed on it. I don't really want to just throw a name out there and do this question injustice and not give you a good qualified answer because I don't really know who could be available. But there will be players that might not make the roster or players that really outperform other players in training camp on different teams, which could lead to interior offensive linemen being available on the trade market. And that's the number one place I would go if I was Chris Grier on the Dolphins if they're looking to make a trade in addition to this roster. My boy Chef Jew with a question. Could you potentially see Chop Robinson being a beast this season after what we've seen in training camp? Absolutely. I think Chop is going to have a really big role on this Dolphins team. Now, it's a question of what you think a beast is, right? Like, what would satisfy you for first-year production from Chop Robinson? Because he wasn't the most productive player at Penn State last year, and that was one of my biggest knocks on him when the Dolphins ended up selecting him at number 21 overall. But when you watch the film, you can just see how explosive he is, how bendy he is, how twitchy he is, and how he's able to really make opposing quarterbacks feel uncomfortable due to his speed and athleticism on the perimeter. Now, being behind Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb when fully healthy, probably Emmanuel Ogbah as well, like being that fourth edge rusher, like I don't know what we can fully expect in terms of production, but it would not shock me if Chop had 4.5, 5 sacks in relief during the season or having to play because of an injury ahead of him at times. I do think Chop is going to be productive and have a role on this team. Now, I don't think he's going to have a crazy rookie year where he has 8.5 sacks. Don't believe that's going to be the case whatsoever. But anywhere between 2.5 to 5.5 is definitely on the table for me. And I just want to see him make people uncomfortable with his quick first step and bendiness on the edge. I'm not going to compare him to Myles Garrett, but he has those similar athletic traits and crazy athleticism like Myles Garrett does have. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are playing the Falcons on the field on Friday night, but we're also playing them on the YouTube street. So make sure you hit that sub button here at Dolphins Today. Daily content. Going to be live for that game on Friday where we want to beat the Falcons on the field, but also in YouTube. Trailing by 12 right now. Hit that sub button to get the best content on YouTube. Chris with a question. Thoughts on bringing back offensive lineman Connor Williams? Well, depending on when you're watching this, he could already be signed. He visited the Seattle Seahawks in the past and then now visited the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think Williams is really an option for Miami to bring him back. I would be very open to do so, but it was reported that Williams has no intention on going back to the right guard spot. He wants to continue playing center, and they signed Aaron Brewer. Now, sure, Aaron Brewer could maybe get bumped to right guard or left guard if absolutely need be, but he's more well-suited to be a center. And I think Connor Williams, as good as he is, that boat is kind of sailed with him in Miami at this point. Sure, would he help this team get better? Yes, but I don't think Chris Greer has any want or need to bring him back, and I don't think Connor Williams really wants to come back, if we're going to be honest, either. It's unfortunate because Connor was really good for Miami, although he did have some snap problems. I just don't see a way they come together. Noriega 305, starting linebackers. Yeah, we could go through the starting linebackers. So if we're including edges into this and outside linebackers, if you will, I still think that, and I'm going to bet on the Dolphins having Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips for week 1. So I'll go Bradley Chubbs and Jalen Phillips week 1 on the opposing starters. Now the question is, what type of defense are they going to run? Are they going to run 2 interior defensive linemen and then with a nickel package? Like, it's hard to predict the starting linebackers, but if you're going on the interior, David Long Jr. is definitely your number 1 linebacker. And it depends. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Jordan Brooks was trotted out there to be the linebacker next to David Long Jr. It wouldn't shock me if it was Anthony Walker Jr. We still have to see how those two battle out for the rest of the camp, but they do have contrasting styles. Anthony Walker Jr. being a better pass coverage linebacker, and Jordan Brooks being that better run stopper and thumper over the middle of the field. We're going to continue answering some of these Dolphins questions, but the season is here, folks, and if you want to represent the Dolphins with a jersey on game days, chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey is the best way to do it. You get those throwback Tua jerseys, the Jalen Waddle jerseys, who I'm going to be representing a lot this upcoming season. Tyreek Hill, the best wide receiver in football. You can get his jersey. Or maybe one of the best corners in football, Jalen Ramsey. It does not matter. All shapes, all sizes, all colorways, all players. Chatsports.com/Dolphins jersey. Get your jersey today. It's in the link. It's in the description and comments of today's video. So get yours today. Represent the Dolphins every single day. Sherry May with a question here. Talk to us about our new center, please. Yeah, so the Dolphins signed a center a couple days ago. They released a guy as well due to injury. Kind of just a camp body, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't think he's expected to really be someone to make this team, right? And I don't think it would be someone that like, if you're signing someone in mid-August that's not a big-time name, that's a veteran holding out, and he's just trying to fight for a roster spot, he'd have to really perform in camp, but I don't really see that being a possibility. You also already have guys that you had in undrafted free agency, like Andrew Meyer, who is battling for a roster spot. So, to me, I don't really see a way for him to make this roster. Now that Tim Bowens is going to be inducted in the Dolphins honor roll, yeah, congrats to him. That was announced just a week ago. Who, in your opinion, should be next? I'm going to be really showing my age here because, like, to me, like, it's tough to, like, go out and say, like, someone I never watched, even though they might be more deserving. Like, why not bring in, like, Ricky Williams or, like, Ted Ginn Jr.? Like, those guys were so fun to watch for these Dolphins teams. Like, why not, man? I'd kind of go in that fun route. There's a lot of deserving people out there. We'll see who they end up bringing in soon, though. Chris with a question. Who do you think will be a breakout player Friday night? Ooh, that's a good question. Who's going to perform the best for the Dolphins this upcoming Friday? Let's see here. Is it biased to say Malik Washington? Maybe. Might be biased to say Malik Washington. You know what? I'm actually going to go with a different rookie. I'm going to go with Jalen Wright. And the rookie running back out of Tennessee, like, we talked about how he was 6th on the depth chart in the initial depth chart on yesterday's video. But if he really is that late, like, he's going to get a lot of run in the second half. And I think if he's getting a lot of plays, opportunities, and a lot of carries, a lot of touches in the second half against opposing teams like 3rd or 4th string defense, I think Jalen Wright's going to light them up. And if he's truly listed as the RB6 and gets RB6 roles in the second half of the first preseason game, I think Jalen Wright is going to be someone going nuclear on Friday night. Speaking of Friday night, who do you got? Dolphins or the Falcons? Type MIA if you think the Dolphins are going to get the win. Type ATL if you think it's going to be the Falcons. All right, that will do it for today's mailbag. Make sure you are following us on Instagram, like I said off the top. We want to get to 500 followers before the regular season gets underway in just about a month. We're about 150 followers away. We want to get 30 on today's show. More content over there on a daily basis, so go give us a follow. All right. How excited are we, folks? I'm excited. You excited? I'm excited. Are you excited? Let's see. I haven't checked Twitter. You know, not being on Twitter for a long time always scares me. Is it bad? I think it's terrible that I have to check Twitter every 10 minutes, or at most 10 minutes. It's the job, but I just feel like if I'm not on Twitter, I'm missing out. Ooh, some Dolphins news. 1 second. I think crazy. Dolphins worked out former Browns receiver Mike Harley on Wednesday. Wait. Oh, to work out. It's planned. I was so confused. I'm like, am I living in Inception? Worked out on Wednesday. It's Tuesday. Yeah. My goodness. Yeah. Either way, though, looks like working on a wide receiver. I mean, there is some news, too, that we probably should at least mention. Oh, should pull up my polo there. And it's Brandon Ayuk. We said that it's not going to happen for the Dolphins, but it looks like Brandon Ayuk is going to be traded away from the San Francisco 49ers, and that's what it feels like everything's going. And one of the teams that is in pursuit is the New England Patriots, a division rival, which, if we're going to be honest here, and just hand up, let's be honest, folks, Brandon Ayuk to the Patriots, does it make New England a team that's ready to compete this year and really threaten Miami or any other teams? No, but it could really make them good in the future, having a wide receiver one of his caliber and potentially elevating Drake May in his development, which is scary in its own right. So let's hope, folks, that Brandon Ayuk is not going to be a New England Patriot. But a couple of the other options aren't good either. Potentially either going to Pittsburgh. He's going to the AFC, right, as Jack says. It's either Pittsburgh, New England, or Cleveland, which if he stays on San Francisco, Miami plays San Francisco this year. If he goes to Cleveland, Dolphins play Cleveland this year in the late portion of the schedule. Goes to the Patriots, you're obviously going to have to see him 2 times a year, which isn't ideal. And if he goes to the Steelers, you don't play the Steelers this year. But, and I don't actually think that really means anything. I got to be honest. I think the Steelers are going to be stink. They're going to be bad. I know it's kind of a hot take because they have a good defense, but I just think their quarterback play is going to be so piss poor. Even with Brandon Ayuk, I don't think it moves the needle that much. But going to the Patriots definitely does concern me. Not for this year, but for the following years, if he's able to really help Drake May develop. Because look at what Stephon Diggs did for Josh Allen. Sure, maybe Josh Allen was going to develop either way, but you can't deny that his impact as his wide receiver one didn't accelerate that process and make it more easier for him. So if Drake May gets a wide receiver one of Brandon Ayuk's caliber, that could be dangerous. That could be a little bit dangerous. Chad says, Jack, we don't want to talk about the pansies on here. Oh, he didn't. Oh, so what was the reason why I even brought up Brandon Ayuk to talk about it? Well, there's a new report here that said Patriots are willing to make Ayuk one of the top 5 highest receivers in the NFL in terms of paid money, and they are aggressively pursuing him. We'll see. I haven't seen Ricky. No, I haven't seen Ricky. Jason says, have to get going. Hope you all have a great night. Jason, have a fantastic night, my friend. I appreciate you stopping by and supporting the show. You're a legend. Hopefully we see you coming around in the future. Hopefully we see you Friday, Jason, because it's going to be tons of fun here at Dolphins Today. All right, one more segment to talk about the 10 Dolphins that I am going to be watching in the first preseason game. Let's get into today's show, the last one. Yeah, Dolphins Today, folks. All right, let's do it. The Miami Dolphins take on the Atlanta Falcons tonight in their first preseason game. And on today's show, we're doing a little bit of a preview, but not your normal preview during the regular season where we break down keys to victory, injury news. Well, because we don't really care about keys to victory in a preseason game. But we do care about some players that we have to watch. And on today's show, I'm giving you the 10 Dolphins I have my eye on to see how they perform and if they could improve their stock or decline their stock going forward in training camp. But make sure you do join us because we will be live tonight an hour before kickoff. 7 p.m. Eastern Time is the slot kickoff. We'll be live 1 hour prior to that at 6 p.m. This is the thumbnail. So if you see this come across your YouTube page, click on it. Join myself. We'll be with producer Matt Goldman and Sam Brown as we watch the Dolphins kick off their season with a Week 1 preseason game against the Falcons. Subscribe and make sure you join us. All right, the first player that I got my eyes on here for the Dolphins is edge rusher Quinton Bell, someone who has been flashing onto the scene over the past couple weeks, someone that we didn't think was really going to have a chance to make this roster. He has been absolutely terrific in training camp. And if I'm going to be honest, he went from someone I didn't even think was possible to make this team to, if he has one good preseason game, he might be a lock. That's how good he's been. He has incredible athleticism, second most athletic edge rusher Miami has behind Chop Robinson in terms of their first step, bendiness, shiftiness. Quinton Bell's been making plays all over the place against his own team and in the first couple of days of joint practice against the Falcons. But now it's time to go do it in a real game. Like, nothing matters, right? I just from personal experience in football, baseball, basketball, every sport that I played, like there are players that are really good in practice. But once it gets to the game, they struggle and they can't perform and they can't elevate. Can Quinton Bell continue this progression he has and perform well in the preseason game against the Falcons? If he's able to do that, I'll be impressed and have him locked in to a Dolphins roster spot. Same could be said for Ethan Bonner, the cornerback who has been turning heads for the Miami Dolphins. He's gotten praise from Tyreek Hill, praise from Jalen Waddle. He's another player that has been really, really good in training camp for the Fins. And if he's able to continue that momentum and play well against the Falcons, defending some of their wide receivers like Darnell Mooney, Rondell Moore, Drake London, like that would be a really good start for Bonner to continue this momentum for him to potentially make this roster. And a lot of these guys that we're mentioning having a strong camp, I'm going to continue to say the same thing that I just said for Quinton Bell. Doesn't matter if you do it in practice. You do it on game day. Both Bonner and Bell have been excellent in training camp practice, playing their own guys, but you also know some of their tendencies. Can you go out and perform on the field against players that you don't see every single day? Those are the two guys on defense that I got my eyes on the most. Let me know, though, what player are you most excited to watch on Friday for the Miami Dolphins? Maybe it's Quinton Bell. Maybe it's Ethan Bonner. Maybe it's Jalen Wright, the running back from Tennessee, who is making his Dolphins debut, fourth-round pick. Obviously, Miami traded a future third-round pick to get that fourth-rounder and select Wright. I am very excited to see the running back from Tennessee because I expect him to have a role on this team, but in the first initial depth chart from the Fins, he was listed as RB6, and we haven't seen a lot of praise from Dolphins beat reporters on Jalen Wright. He struggled in OTAs and minicamp in June and July, but then with training camp rolling around, I was hoping to see his name pop up a lot more. Well, that really hasn't been the case. So if he's getting some run and a lot of touches in the second half when all the scrubs are in, he needs to be performing well if he wants to kind of ensure himself a role on this team. I think he's a guaranteed lock to make the team since they invested such a good piece into him. But the question is, can he actually have a role on this Dolphins team in his rookie year? Jalen Wright's going to have to perform in some of these preseason games to really provide me confidence and provide Dolphins coaches and front office members confidence as well. I have to say Willie Snead. I simply have to say his name because, well, whenever you have someone who had so much success in the NFL in the past like Willie Snead has had with the New Orleans Saints, then he kind of struggles a little bit. And the Dolphins signed him right as training camp's getting underway or a week after it really got started. Like, you just have to be intrigued to see what happens with him, right? Like, I'm fascinated to see what he could bring to the table. He's had a couple good plays in camp so far. Can he continue to showcase his resurgence, if you will, to make this roster? Like, OBJ still on the PUP list. Eric Azukama dealing with injuries. Like, if Willie Snead is able to stack a couple good weeks of training camp practice and pair them up with a couple good performances in preseason games, like, what's telling me that Willie Snead can't be the sixth wide receiver on this team? I really don't think that's crazy to say he could be on this roster when it's cut down to 53 people, but Willie Snead is someone that needs to perform in these preseason games. Tight end Tanner Connor is also a very fun game fun player to watch because the tight end department is very, very interesting. We've talked about Jordy Fortson Jr. in the past. Durham Smythe is listed as tight end 1. in the first depth chart. Julian Hill has a really strong camp. I am very high on Jody Fortson Jr. We've talked about that in the past. He's kind of like my guy after seeing how well he performed in OTAs and minicamp. I predicted he would make this team, but he's listed as 4 on the depth chart. Tanner Connor, who's been outperforming Jody Fortson Jr. in the first week and a half of training camp, listed as tight end 5. But if he's able to come in late in this game and really perform well in the receiving area, in the blocking area, kind of showcase his total package, like maybe he is going to be someone who could make this team. I'm really unsure of how many tight ends Mike McDaniel is going to keep. One year he kept 5, while the other year he kept 2. It's the only 2 years we know have him as head coach. So I don't know how many tight ends I can expect to make this team. Maybe they keep 4 and we see a lot of names make it. Maybe they only keep 3. Maybe they do keep 5. I don't know. But Tanner Connor is going to be someone that I hope to see make some plays if he wants to continue to try to make this team. I know the game is tonight, but hey, if you wanted to get last-minute tickets to go to the Falcons-Dolphins preseason game, Game Time's there to make that happen because they actually are the best ticketing app to get you the best prices at last minute. They got last-minute tickets and flash deals. You can see exactly where you're sitting, lowest price guarantee. There's nothing that Game Time can offer you to get your tickets today. I love the idea of being able to see your seat as you're buying the ticket, the all-in price. And listen, if you find a ticket in a different app in the same exact seat, in the same exact section, in row, that's cheaper, Game Time will actually give you 110% credit because they pride themselves on giving you the lowest guaranteed price, and that's just what makes Game Time the best. They have so many fun features that just make it so easy to get tickets. Like you see this photo right here. If you're going to a Dolphins game, you can look in different ways. You can look in the arena section. You can look at the pictures. You can look in list form. They really have so many easy features that makes buying tickets easy, and I am someone who likes easy. I don't know about you. So if you want to get tickets, make sure you use Game Time and get $20 off your first purchase when you download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code CHATSPORTS. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, to get $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I'd be remiss to not mention Malik Washington on this list. I've only talked about him what feels like the most out of any player outside of Tua Tagovailoa this offseason. The 6th-round pick out of Virginia is someone that I really want to see ball out in training camp or in this preseason game because I thought he was going to really show out and show up in training camp, but it really just hasn't been the case for Malik Washington. Sure, he's made some plays, but it hasn't been like, oh my God, this 6th-round guy is an absolute stud, a steal, like I would have thought he would. Malik wants to be someone who can fit into this offense as a slot receiver. I think he can be, but he's going to have to show up on the field, and I got my eye on him against the Atlanta Falcons. Mohamed Kamara, the 5th-round pick out of Colorado State, is another player that I am going to be focused on because Mohamed Kamara is someone who's going to see a lot of run in this game. When you don't have Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb, Mo Kamara is now going to be that 3rd or 4th edge rusher, probably behind Emmanuel Ogbah, Quinton Bell, Chop Robinson. Then Mo Kamara comes in as edge rusher number 4. So he is going to see a lot of playing time for the Dolphins in this game, and he needs to make the most of it. Not because he's on the roster bubble, but just to try to really get his feet under him in his first official NFL game action. So hopefully he's able to perform well because I think he's got a really good motor. He's a dog, and he's just a winning caliber player. Let me know who you got in tonight's game. We're obviously going to be live for it, breaking it down, but predict who the winner is going to be. Type MIA for the Dolphins, or if you're going with the Dirty Birds, the Falcons, type those ATLs. Tear Tart is another name that I got my eye on, the defensive lineman, who I thought was going to be a sneaky, underrated, really good signing for the Dolphins back in free agency, but was not good in mandatory minicamp and OTAs, out of shape, dealing with injuries, didn't play well, really struggled in the first 3 or 4 days of training camp as well, but had a very strong week of practice. And that is showing me a lot of good signs. Like the first practice on Tuesday against the Falcons, he showed up in the run game, creating some gaps for linebackers to fill, stopping the run as well. Like, Teair Tart was extremely good early this week, and hopefully he can put a really good game together against the Falcons tonight because he's on that roster bubble. It's a competitive interior defensive line group right now. Can Teair Tart kind of work his way up to the top of that list? Let's see it. Channing Tindall has to be mentioned as well because he is someone who is on the really outside looking in of this team. The former third-round pick out of Georgia a couple of years ago has never really found his footing, and he's in a battle for that final linebacker 4 spot, in my opinion, with Duke Riley, because you got the top 3, and then Duke Riley and Tindall are fighting it out for that 3rd spot. And he needs to have a great preseason. He's made some good plays during the first 2 weeks of training camp. There's no denying that. But he needs to go out on the football field and make plays. Can you force a fumble? Can you somehow get your hand on a ball to intercept it, or at least tip it to allow one of your defensive backs behind you to make a play in the air? Like, if Channing Tindall is able to string together some good stops, some good plays, turn the ball over, maybe he closes that gap between him and Duke Riley, who probably has the inside edge right now on being this Dolphins' 4th linebacker on the 53-man. Tindall is on the outside looking in. He needs to have a great preseason, so I'm watching him definitely for most of this game on Friday night. Jack Driscoll is the last player that we are going to mention as well, because I know it's tough to really address offensive linemen and really make sure you're keened in on them because you're watching so many other things. But with how poorly he has played at the start of training camp, he needs to get off to a good start in preseason. I predicted him to end up overtaking Robert Jones to be the starting right guard on this team just a few weeks ago. Evidently, I feel like I'm wrong, at least to this point. He's listed behind Liam Eichenberg even for the starting right guard spot because Jones was moved over to the left guard with Isaiah Wynn being on the PUP list. Driscoll has gotten some snaps at center as well, struggling with that snapping too, which has been a theme all training camp already between him and Aaron Brewer. I don't know what the Dolphins have done to be cursed with centers' inability to snap the football correctly. But either way, Driscoll has been struggling in practice. He needs to come out and play a strong game against the Atlanta Falcons. Speaking of that game, mentioned off the top, we're going to be live for it. So if you see this thumbnail, make sure you subscribe and join us because we are going to be live for the Dolphins' first preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons. We'll come with an instant reaction video, winners and losers from the first game as well for the next day. We'll have you covered on everything surrounding this first preseason game, but make sure you subscribe and join us for the first game this Friday night. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. 4 segments in the book. And before we get out of here, what player are you most excited to watch? I saw some people say Jalen Wright down below, one of my favorites. Malik Washington is for sure one of the person that I'm watching. Let me know who you guys are most intrigued to watch. Let me know. Shout out to Danielle, who followed us on Instagram, I assume from the live show. Shout out to you, Danielle. Ooh, Cullen produced Michigan. Yeah, that's what put into sponsors. Hopefully. What, you want to do it? I know, but he's helping you out. Don't have to make cuts and then go. We know, Jack. We definitely know. Very territorial, too. Well, look at us now. Who would have thought? Look at us now. There, look at us now. Yeah, Kristen, that's a good name. Storm Duck. We didn't really talk about any UDFAs on that 10 players I got my eye on for, but definitely going to be watching UDFA, Storm Duck, Mark Perry, Grayson Murphy. I'm bummed that Gavin Hardison got cut a week and a half ago because I told you guys a lot. I was going to be excited to see how he was going to play in preseason games. But evidently, he didn't even get to the preseason. Poor Gavin. Hopefully, he lands on his feet somewhere because I was interested to see how he's going to play. Got a big arm. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, that's going to do it for today's live show. I appreciate every single person for hanging out with us today. The amazing donations as well. Hopefully, we have a lot of fun like this on Friday night for this Falcons-Dolphins preseason watch party game. How about that, folks? The next time you're going to see me in person live on the channel, we're going to be watching football together. How about that? I feel like a kid on Christmas. Oh, my God. All right. Peace out, Dolphins fans. We'll have videos out later today, tomorrow. We got it every day. So hopefully I'll see you then. Appreciate everyone coming and watching. For Jack Latteray, Nic Rohloff. Peace out.